Part 1. First contact gone wrong. Captain Jake Morrison walked slowly across the bridge of the UES Defiance, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The massive viewscreen showed nothing but stars and empty space, but he knew that would change soon. Today would be different. Today, humanity would meet its first alien species. "Captain, we're getting readings on the long-range sensors," called out Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez from her position at the tactical station. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her brown eyes focused intently on the glowing displays in front of her. 5 ships, coming in from behind the asteroid field. Jake nodded and moved to stand behind his command chair. The Defiance was humanity's newest and most advanced ship. It had taken Earth's best engineers 3 years to build, and every human in space was proud of it. The ship was 400 meters long, with thick armor plating and the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created. To Jake, it represented everything humans could achieve when they worked together. "Red alert," Jake ordered. The bridge lights dimmed and warning sounds echoed through the ship. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Dr. Kevin Walsh looked up from his console near the back of the bridge. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. As the ship's chief archaeologist and historian, he usually spent his time studying ancient human artifacts, not preparing for space battles. But something about this moment felt important to him, though he could not explain why. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sarah Collins from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "We're receiving a transmission. It's on multiple frequencies, and the computer says it's using some kind of universal translation system." "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The view screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The alien was tall, at least 7 feet, with green scales covering its body. Its eyes were yellow, with thin black slits like a snake, and when it smiled, they could see rows of sharp white teeth. "Greetings, humans," the alien said, and its voice was deep and smooth. "I am Admiral Vexstar of the Xanthari Collective. We have heard stories about your species, and we decided to come see you for ourselves." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiance. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations with your people." Vexstar looked at Jake for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. The sound was not pleasant. It reminded Jake of glass breaking. "Friendly relations?" Vexstar repeated, still chuckling. "How amusing. Tell me, Captain Morrison, is that little ship of yours the best your species can build?" Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Defiance represents the finest of human engineering and technology. This made Vexstar laugh even harder. Behind him, other aliens appeared on the screen, and they were all laughing too. Some looked like Vexstar, but others were different. One had blue skin and 4 arms. Another looked like it was made of living rock. "Your finest technology," Vexstar said, wiping what might have been tears from his yellow eyes. "We have seen children's toys that look more dangerous than your ship. The Xanthari Collective has ruled this part of space for over 2,000 years, little human. We have forgotten more about shipbuilding than your species has ever learned." On the view screen, Jake could see the alien ships moving closer. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of the clean metal lines of human ships, these vessels looked like they were alive. Their hulls seemed to pulse and breathe, and strange lights moved across their surfaces in patterns that hurt to look at. "Your ship is interesting, though," Vexstar continued. "It reminds us of some old wrecks we have found floating in dead space. Ancient things, probably built by some primitive species that went extinct long ago. We keep a few in our museums as examples of how not to build a starship." Amy Rodriguez's hands moved to her weapons controls, but Jake held up a hand to stop her. Starting a fight with 5 alien ships would not end well for humanity. Dr. Walsh was studying the alien ships carefully, and something was bothering him. The way they moved, the formation they were using, even the confident way they spoke, it all seemed familiar somehow. But that was impossible. Humans had never met aliens before today. We are broadcasting this conversation on all frequencies, Vexstar announced. We want every species in this sector to see what the famous humans really are. Perhaps this will stop all the silly rumors we have been hearing about your people. What rumors? Jake asked. Oh, there have been stories, Vexstar said with another unpleasant smile. Tales of ancient human technology found in the ruins of dead civilizations. Claims that your species built things that even we cannot understand. Nonsense, of course. Looking at your little ship, we can see that humans are exactly what we expected, a young species with primitive technology and big dreams. The alien ships continued to circle the Defiance like predators around prey. Jake could see the crew getting nervous, but he kept his voice calm and steady. We may be a young species, Jake said, but we are not to be underestimated. Of course not, Vexstar replied, but his tone made it clear he did not believe a word of it. Well, this has been educational, Captain Morrison. We will be sure to tell the Galactic Council about our meeting. I am sure they will be very interested to learn what humanity is really capable of. The transmission ended and the alien ships pulled back to a safe distance. They did not leave, though. Instead, they just sat there, watching the Defiance like scientists studying an interesting bug. Sir, Amy said quietly, should we contact Earth Command? Jake nodded. Send a priority message to Admiral Parker. Tell her we have made first contact and it did not go well. Dr. Walsh was still staring at the alien ships, his mind working on something that would not quite come together. There was something important here, something that everyone was missing. The way the aliens talked about finding old human technology, the way they seemed to know more about humanity than they should, it did not make sense. Captain, he said slowly, I think we need to do some research. Jake looked at him. What kind of research? The kind that might change everything we think. We know about human history. As the Defiance began its journey back to Earth, none of them knew that they had just started down a path that would reveal humanity's greatest secret and change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Part 2. The ancient discovery. 3 days had passed since the humiliating encounter with the Zentari ships. The Defiance was still 2 days away from Earth when the priority transmission came through. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room, staring at the encrypted message marker blinking on his personal screen. Whatever Earth Command wanted to tell him, it was important enough to use the highest security channels. Computer, decrypt and display message, Jake ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly he was looking at Dr. Lisa Parker, head of Earth's Deep Space Archaeological Division. Her usually neat blonde hair looked messy, and there were dark circles. Under her blue eyes, she looked like she had not slept in days. Jake, I need you to see this immediately, Lisa began without any greeting. Kevin's preliminary report about the alien formation triggered something in our deep archives. What we found changes everything we thought we knew about human history. Jake leaned forward in his chair. Lisa was one of the smartest people he knew, and she never got excited about anything unless it was truly important. I'm sending you classified data from the Titan excavations, Lisa continued. Project Deep Ice has been digging under Titan's surface for the past 5 years. We told the public we were looking for water and minerals, but that was just a cover story. What we really found down there will shock you. The transmission paused, and Jake's screen filled with images that made him catch his breath. The pictures showed a massive underground facility carved into Titan's ice. The complex was enormous, stretching for kilometers in every direction. But what made Jake's heart race was how familiar it looked. The architecture, the design patterns, even the way the corridors were laid out, it all looked human. The facility is over 1,000 years old, Lisa's voice continued as more images appeared. Carbon dating confirms it, and the quantum resonance patterns match perfectly. Jake, this is a human shipyard. Our ancestors built this place long before we ever achieved spaceflight, according to our history books. Jake called Dr. Kevin Walsh to his ready room immediately. When the older man arrived, Jake showed him the transmission without saying a word. Kevin's face went pale as he studied the images. This is impossible, Kevin whispered. According to everything we know, humans barely had gunpowder 1,000 years ago. We were still fighting with swords and riding horses. Keep watching, Jake said. The next part of the transmission showed the shipyard's construction bays. They were massive, designed to build vessels that would dwarf anything humanity had ever created. The Defiance, humanity's pride and joy, would look like a small shuttle next to the ships this facility was meant to produce. We found complete blueprints in the facility's quantum storage cores, Lisa explained. The technology shown in these plans is centuries ahead of anything we have today. Faster-than-light drives that make our current engines look like steam power, weapons that could crack planets, defensive systems that bend space itself. Commander Steve Bennett, the ship's chief engineer, joined them in the ready room. When he saw the technical specifications, his hands started shaking. "These quantum displacement drives," Steve said, pointing at the blueprints. "We have theories about this kind of propulsion, but the math is so complex we can barely understand it. Yet these plans show every detail, every component. It's like having the blueprint for a starship written by gods." Kevin was studying a different part of the data. "Look at this construction log," he said. The last entry is dated 943 years ago. They were building something called Project Genesis, a massive colony ship designed to carry 100,000 people. "Where was it going?" Jake asked. "The Galactic Rim," Kevin replied. According to this, Project Genesis was launched to establish human colonies in unexplored space. But Jake, if this is true, then humans have been traveling between stars for almost 1,000 years. Lisa's transmission continued with even more disturbing information. "We found personal logs from the shipyard workers. Jake, these people looked exactly like modern humans, but they possess technology that seems almost magical. They talk about great works across the galaxy, about helping younger species develop, and about something they called the Great Forgetting." The final part of the transmission was the most shocking. Hidden in the deepest storage vaults, the archaeologists had found emergency broadcasts from the lost colony ships. The messages were fragmentary, damaged by time and encryption, but their meaning was clear. "Something hunted us," one of the ancient voices said through heavy static. "Not to destroy, but to erase. They want no record that we ever existed. The memory seeds are our only hope. Future generations must find them when the time is right." "Memory seeds?" Steve asked. Kevin was already pulling up star charts on his tablet. "If these records are accurate, then every piece of alien technology found in ancient ruins might actually be human. The Xanthari talked about finding old wrecks in dead space. What if those wrecks were human ships?" Jake stood up and began pacing. "You're saying that 1,000 years ago, humans had an advanced spacefaring civilization, and then something made us forget about it?" "Not just forget," Kevin said, studying more of the data. "According to these logs, our ancestors deliberately hid Earth and the remaining human colonies behind some kind of temporal barrier. They sacrificed their advanced technology to protect what was left of humanity." Lisa's transmission had one final revelation. "Jake, we've started scanning our own orbital defense platforms with new quantum sensors. The results are impossible to believe. What we thought were recently built human defense systems are actually ancient technology, dormant and waiting. The activation codes are hidden in the Titan facility's databases." Steve was studying the technical data with growing amazement. If even half of this is true, then humanity's real defensive capabilities are thousands of years ahead of what we thought. No wonder the Xanthari seemed so confident. They probably think they're dealing with a primitive species that just learned to build starships. "But why reveal this now?" Jake asked. "Why did our encounter with the Xanthari trigger this discovery?" Kevin looked up from his tablet with a grave expression. "Because the memory seeds were programmed to activate when humanity rediscovered spaceflight and made contact with other species. The system has been waiting for us to reach this exact point in our development." Jake realized the implications were staggering. If humanity had once possessed technology that could make them the dominant species in the galaxy, then their current situation was not what it seemed. The Xanthari had mocked human ships as primitive relics, but what if they were actually mocking the descendants of the very beings who had built the foundation of galactic civilization? Set course for Earth, maximum speed, Jake ordered. And send a message to Admiral Parker. Tell her we need an immediate meeting with the Global Council. Everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the galaxy just changed. As the Defiance accelerated toward home, none of them could imagine that their discovery was about to awaken something that had been sleeping for 1,000 years, waiting for the day when humanity would reclaim its true heritage among the stars. Part 3. Hidden Truths. The Global Council chambers in Geneva had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as Dr. Lisa Parker presented the evidence from Titan. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the back of the room, watching world leaders struggle to understand what they were being told. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lisa said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber, "we are not who we thought we were. Humanity has a history that stretches back over a millennium, and it's a history we were made to forget." President Helen Carter of the North American Federation leaned forward in her chair. "Dr. Parker, you're asking us to believe that our ancestors built starships when our history books say they were still using candles for light." "That's exactly what I'm asking you to believe," Lisa replied, "because the evidence is overwhelming." Dr. Rachel King, Earth's leading expert in temporal archaeology, stepped up to the presentation screen. She was young for such an important position, barely 30 years old, but her work with quantum dating had revolutionized the field. "We've been working around the clock for the past week," Rachel said. "What we found in the Titan facilities. Quantum storage cores will change how we view human civilization forever." The lights dimmed, and the wall screen showed a holographic projection of a man who looked completely normal. He had brown hair, green eyes, and could have been anyone's neighbor. But the technology around him was beyond anything modern humans had achieved. "This is Commander David Hayes," Rachel explained. "He was one of the shipyard supervisors at the Titan facility 950 years ago. We recovered his personal logs from the quantum storage." David's voice filled the chamber, speaking in perfect English with just a slight accent that no one could identify. "Personal log, stardate 4472.3. Construction of the Genesis colony ship is proceeding ahead of schedule. The quantum core assembly is complete, and we should be ready for launch within the month. It's hard to believe we're actually doing this. Taking 100,000 volunteers to establish new human colonies beyond the galactic rim." The recording paused, and Rachel continued. "David Hayes talks about human colonies like they were common. He mentions trading with species we've never heard of, and using technology that makes our current ships look primitive." Dr. Kevin Walsh, who had flown back to Earth with Jake, stood up from his seat. "We found references to over 40 human colony worlds scattered across the galaxy. According to these records, humanity was one of the founding members of what we now call the Galactic Council." Minister Chun Lu of the Asian Coalition looked skeptical. "If we were so advanced, what happened to all of this technology? Why don't we remember any of it?" Lieutenant Sarah Collins, who had also been brought to Earth to help with the investigation, activated another recording. This one showed a woman with short red hair and worried eyes. She wore a uniform that looked similar to modern military dress, but with subtle differences that marked it as ancient. "Emergency log, Admiral Jennifer Cross, Terran Space Command," the woman said. Her voice was tense, frightened. "The erasers have struck 3 more colonies. They're not destroying our settlements. They're making them disappear from history itself." Our quantum archaeologists report that entire star systems are being wiped from galactic records. The recording crackled with static before continuing. "We've confirmed our worst fears. Someone or something is systematically removing all evidence of human presence from the galaxy. They want future generations to believe we never existed beyond Earth." A chill settled over the chamber. Jake could see fear in the faces of the world leaders as they began to understand the implications. Rachel activated a third recording, this one showing an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. This is Dr. William Foster, head of the Temporal Defense Project. He explains what our ancestors did to protect what remained of humanity. Dr. Foster's image spoke calmly, but his words were terrifying. We have no choice but to activate the Great Concealment. Earth and our remaining colonies will be hidden behind temporal barriers that will make us invisible to galactic civilization. The process requires us to sacrifice our advanced technology and accept a return to primitive conditions. They deliberately made us forget, Rachel said quietly. Our ancestors chose to hide us in the past, literally. They used technology that placed Earth in a temporal bubble, making it appear to the galaxy that we had never achieved spaceflight. Dr. Walsh stepped forward with another revelation. We found evidence of something called memory seeds. Before the Great Concealment, our ancestors hid advanced technology and historical records throughout human space. These caches were designed to activate when humanity naturally rediscovered spaceflight and made contact with other species. Which is exactly what happened 3 days ago, Jake added. Our encounter with the Xanthari triggered something. All across the solar system, ancient systems are waking up. As if summoned by his words, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently in President Carter's ear. Her face went pale as she listened. Ladies and gentlemen, President Carter announced, I've just received word from our orbital defense stations. They're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the solar system. Structures that we thought were asteroids are revealing themselves to be artificial constructs. Commander Kate Washington of Earth Defense Command appeared on the communication screen. Her usually calm demeanor was replaced by barely controlled excitement. Mr. President, you need to see this. The mining station on Ceres just opened up like a flower. It's not a mining station at all. It's a massive weapons platform. With technology we can't even identify. More reports flooded in. The research station on Europa revealed hidden chambers filled with advanced spacecraft. The communication relay on Mars expanded into a structure 10 times its apparent size. Across the solar system, humanity's true defensive capabilities were awakening after centuries of slumber. There's more, Kate continued. We're receiving signals from beyond the solar system. Automated beacons are activating throughout human space, and they're all broadcasting the same message. The children of Earth have returned to the stars. Dr. King was studying the incoming data with growing amazement. These signals are coming from everywhere. If this map is accurate, human installations exist in hundreds of star systems. We never lost our spacefaring civilization. We just hid it so well that even we forgot about it. Jake felt a mixture of pride and terror as the truth became clear. Humanity wasn't a young species struggling to find its place among the stars. They were the descendants of a galactic power that had chosen to hide rather than fight whatever had threatened them centuries ago. The question now, Jake said to the assembled leaders, is what do we do with this knowledge? Our ancestors hid. You asked for a reason. Whatever forced them into concealment might still be out there. President Carter stood up slowly. Then we'd better be ready for it. Commander Washington, I want a full assessment of our real defensive capabilities. Dr. Parker, continue your research into our lost history. And Captain Morrison, she looked directly at Jake, prepare the Defiance for another meeting with our alien friends. I have a feeling they're going to be very surprised when they learn who they've been talking to. As the chamber erupted in urgent discussions, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to step out of the shadows after 1,000 years of hiding. The galaxy thought they were dealing with primitive newcomers, but they were about to discover they had been mocking the children of their former teachers. The truth was awakening, and with it came the promise that the galaxy would never be the same again. Part 4. The Memory Awakens. The breakthrough came at exactly 14:27 Earth Standard Time on a Tuesday that would be remembered forever. Commander Steve Bennett stood in the engineering bay of the Defiance, staring at a control panel that had never existed before. The ship's computer had grown new systems overnight, ancient technology awakening and integrating itself with modern human designs. Captain Morrison to engineering, Jake's voice echoed through the COM system. Steve, What the hell is happening to my ship? Steve touched the new controls carefully, afraid they might disappear if he pressed too hard. Sir, I think the Defiance is remembering what it really is. These systems weren't here yesterday, but they feel familiar somehow, like they belong. Across the solar system, similar transformations were happening everywhere humans had built structures in space. The orbital defense platforms around Earth had tripled in size, revealing weapons and shielding systems that made humanity's current military technology look like toys from a child's PLI YSET. Commander Kate Washington stood in the main control room of Terra Station, watching displays that showed impossible readings. The station's power output had increased by a factor of 50. Weapon systems that didn't exist in any human database were coming online, and the computer was speaking to her in a language she somehow understood despite never hearing it before. All stations report ready, Kate said into her headset, though she wasn't sure what they were ready for. The grid is stable and defensive systems are at full power. Dr. Rachel King was on Luna Base studying the ancient quantum computers that had revealed themselves beneath the research facility. The machines were unlike anything in human technology, but their interface seemed designed for human minds. When she touched the control surfaces, information flowed directly into her thoughts. "This is incredible," Rachel whispered to her team. "These computers contain the complete history of human galactic civilization. Every colony, every ship, every first contact with alien species. It's all here, preserved in quantum storage that can't be damaged or destroyed." The most amazing discovery came when the awakening systems began connecting with each other. A network that spanned the entire solar system activated, linking every human installation into a single, unified defense grid. But the network didn't stop at the edge of human space. Lieutenant Sarah Collins sat at her communications station aboard the Defiance, listening to signals that shouldn't exist. They were coming from star systems hundreds of light years away, all using the same quantum encryption that the awakened Earth systems recognized. "Captain," Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder, "we're receiving messages from beyond the solar system. They're using call signs that our computers recognize, but according to our records, those stations don't exist." Jake hurried to the bridge, where the main screen showed a star map dotted with blinking lights. Each light represented a human installation that had just revealed itself to the network. There were hundreds of them, scattered across a quarter of the galaxy. "How is this possible?" Jake asked Dr. Kevin Walsh, who had become the ship's unofficial expert on ancient human history. Studied the display with growing excitement. "The Great Concealment didn't just hide Earth. Our ancestors created a galaxy-wide network of hidden installations, all waiting for the day when Earth would rejoin galactic civilization." The first direct contact with the hidden colonies came 6 hours later. Sarah's board lit up with an incoming transmission, heavily encrypted but using codes that the Defiance's ancient systems recognized automatically. "This is Colony Ship Genesis to Earth Command," a woman's voice said through the speakers. "We have been waiting for this day for 943 years. Jake felt his heart stop. "Genesis? That's the colony ship from the Titan records." "Affirmative." "Earth Command," the voice continued. "I am Captain Maria Santos, great-great-granddaughter of the original Genesis crew. We have maintained our vigil at the Galactic Rim, preserving human technology and culture while waiting for your return to the stars." The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a woman who was clearly human but dressed in a uniform that combined familiar elements with designs they had never seen. Behind her, they could see a ship's bridge that was both ancient and impossibly advanced. "Captain Santos," Jake said, hardly believing this was real, "we thought Genesis was lost centuries ago." Maria smiled. "Not lost, Captain Morrison, hidden, just like Earth. Just like all the other human colonies that survived the Erasure War, we've been watching, learning, preparing for the day when humanity would reclaim its place among the stars." More connections followed. Colony after colony reported in, each one revealing that humans had not only survived throughout the galaxy, but had thrived in secret. They had maintained their technology, improved upon it, and most importantly, they had been watching the species that now dominated galactic politics. Dr. Walsh was frantically taking notes as each new colony shared its story. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. According to these reports, humanity guided the development of every major civilization in this part of the galaxy. Captain Santos provided the most shocking revelation of all. The Xanthari collective that you encountered? Their bioship technology is based on human designs they found in ancient wrecks. They've been reverse engineering our cast-off technology for centuries, believing they discovered it themselves. What about the other species? Jake asked. Do they know the truth about human history? Some suspect, Maria replied. But the erasers? Did their work well? Most galactic species believe humanity is a newcomer to space travel. They have no idea that their own civilizations were guided by human exploration teams centuries ago. Commander Washington's voice came through the CUM system from Terra Station. Captain Morrison, you need to see this. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements throughout this sector. It looks like every major alien power is mobilizing their ships. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Why? What triggered this? Maria Santos answered from the Genesis. Because the awakening of Earth's defenses has sent a signal throughout the galaxy. Anyone with advanced sensors can detect the quantum resonance patterns. The major powers know that something significant has happened in this system. Are we in danger? Jake asked. That depends, Maria said, on whether they come seeking war or seeking answers. Either way, humanity is no longer hidden. After 1,000 years in the shadows, we have announced our return to galactic civilization. Dr. King's voice came through from Luna Base. Captain, I've accessed more of the ancient databases. The reason our ancestors went into hiding wasn't just the erasers. There was a prophecy, a prediction that humanity would face its greatest test. When it returned to the stars, what kind of test? Jake asked. The records aren't clear, Rachel replied. But according to these files, our return to galactic politics will determine whether humanity becomes the protector of galactic civilization or watches it collapse into chaos. Jake looked at the star map showing hundreds of hidden human colonies, then at the display showing alien fleets converging on human space. After centuries of hiding, humanity was about to step back onto the galactic stage, and no one knew what would happen next. All stations, prepare for visitors, Jake ordered. And someone get me a direct line to Admiral Vextar. I think it's time the Xanthari learned exactly who they've been dealing with. As alarms sounded throughout human space and ancient weapons powered up for the first time in centuries, humanity prepared to reveal its true nature to a galaxy that had forgotten. Who had taught them to reach for the stars? Part 5. The reckoning Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the destroyer of worlds, watching his fleet approach the human solar system. Behind him, 300 of the Xanthari Collective's finest warships followed in perfect formation. They had come to crush this upstart species before it could become a threat to galactic order. Admiral, his communications officer hissed, we're detecting strange energy readings from the human system. The quantum signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Vextar's yellow eyes narrowed. Impossible. We scanned their pathetic little ship just days ago. These humans barely understand basic space travel. But as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, Vextar's confidence began to crumble. Where he expected to find a few primitive orbital stations, his sensors showed massive defensive installations that dwarfed his own ships. Weapons platforms the size of small moons hung in space around Earth, their surfaces glowing with power signatures that made his scales crawl with fear. Sir, his tactical officer whispered, those defense platforms are targeting us. Power readings are off the scale? Before Vextar could respond, space around his fleet shimmered and ships began appearing out of nowhere. Not the crude metal boxes he expected from humans, but sleek vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, and they surrounded his fleet completely. At the head of the human formation, was a ship that Vexstar recognized with growing horror. It was the Genesis, the same ancient derelict that Xanthari. Scientists had been studying for centuries, trying to understand its impossible technology. But this was no dead wreck. The ship pulsed with life and power, its hull gleaming like polished silver. "This is Captain Alan Foster of the Human Defense Fleet," a calm voice said over the communication channels. "Admiral Vexstar, you called. Our ship's primitive relics? You were right about one thing. They are old. This ship was built by my ancestors 1,043 years ago." Vexstar felt his world collapsing around him. The Genesis had been the crown jewel of the Xanthari research program. Their greatest scientists had spent lifetimes trying to understand even its basic systems. Now he was looking at it fully operational, commanded by the descendants of the beings who had built it. "Impossible," Vexstar breathed. "The Genesis is a dead ship. We found it drifting in space centuries ago." "You found it where we left it," Captain Foster replied. "A carefully placed derelict designed to let younger species discover advanced technology and learn from it. My people have been watching your attempts to reverse engineer our cast-off designs. You've done well, considering the limitations." On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Global Defense Command Center, watching the confrontation unfold on massive screens. Beside him, Dr. Kevin Walsh was frantically cross-referencing the alien ships with data from the ancient archives. "Jake," Kevin said quietly, "according to these records, the Xanthari bioships are based on human agricultural vessels. Their most advanced warships are copies of our old farming equipment." Jake almost laughed despite the tension. "They've been ruling the galaxy with space tractors?" Commander Kate Washington was coordinating the defense grid from Terra Station. The orbital platforms around Earth were fully powered, their weapons locked onto the alien fleet. But these weren't the simple laser cannons and missile systems that humanity had thought they possessed. These were weapons that could crack planets, designed by a civilization that had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe. "All stations report ready," Kate announced. "We have complete tactical superiority." Admiral Vexstar tried to salvage his position. "Even if your claims are true, human, you are vastly outnumbered. My fleet represents the combined might of 3 star-spanning civilizations." "Your fleet," Captain Foster said with what sounded like amusement, "represents 3 civilizations that learned everything they know from studying our ancient technology. Would you like a demonstration of what we kept for ourselves?" Space around. The Genesis shimmered, and suddenly there were dozens of human ships where only one had been before. The holographic projectors shut down, revealing the true size of the human fleet. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything in Vexstar's Armada. Dr. Rachel King's voice came through the communication system from Luna Base. "Captain Foster, I have accessed the complete historical databases. The Xanthari, the Corvani Union, and the Stellar Republic, all 3 civilizations, were guided through their early development by human exploration teams. We taught them faster than light travel. We showed them how to build stable governments. We gave them the technology they used to become galactic powers." The implications hit Vexstar like a physical blow. Everything his people had achieved, every advancement they had made, was based on gifts from a species they had just tried to humiliate. The Xanthari Collective, which had ruled this sector for 2,000 years, had been children playing with toys given to them by their teachers. "Why?" Vexstar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why did you hide? Why let us believe we were the masters of this galaxy?" Captain Foster's expression grew serious. "Because something was hunting us, Admiral? Something that wanted to erase humanity from galactic history. We chose to hide rather than fight, to protect not just ourselves but every species we had helped develop. The erasers wanted to destroy human civilization, but they never found our hidden colonies." Lieutenant Sarah Collins, monitoring communications from the Defiance, detected new signals flooding the quantum networks. "Captain Morrison, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human installations are revealing themselves everywhere. The hidden colonies are dropping their concealment shields. On the main display, Jake watched as star systems that had appeared empty for centuries suddenly showed signs of massive human presence. Entire worlds that had been marked as uninhabitable were revealing themselves to be thriving human colonies. Their populations numbering in the billions, Admiral Vextar's fleet was surrounded not just by ships, but by the revelation that everything they thought they knew about the galaxy was wrong. The humans weren't newcomers struggling to find their place among the stars. They were the ancient guardians returning to reclaim their heritage. What happens now? Vextar asked. Captain Foster smiled. Now, Admiral, you and the other galactic powers have a choice. You can continue to pretend that you're the dominant species in this galaxy, or you can remember who taught you to reach for the stars in the first place. Humanity is done hiding. We're ready to take our place as the protectors of galactic civilization once again. Dr. Walsh stepped forward in the command center on Earth. Captain, the historical records show that humanity originally established the Galactic Council to maintain peace and guide younger species. We created the very system that these aliens now think they control. Jake nodded, understanding the full scope of what was happening. Humanity wasn't just revealing its true nature. It was coming home to institutions it had created centuries ago. Admiral Vextar, Jake said, opening a channel to the alien fleet. Your people have done well with the knowledge we gave you, but the students are about to become students again. Class is back in session. As human ships took positions throughout the galaxy and ancient weapons came online after centuries of sleep, the balance of galactic power shifted back to where it had always belonged. The age of humanity's return had begun, and the galaxy would learn once again what it meant to deal with the species that had built the very foundations of stellar civilization. The children of Earth had come home to the stars they had never really left.